It's a common practice to break down a big and complex problem into smaller units. Then to solve these smaller units separately, and using these solutions, the bigger problem is solved. This is typically known as modular approach of problem solving. In programming, this modular approach is implemented by writing functions. Functions are written to accomplish a particular task that can be used or consumed by some other program or functions. They can be distributed easily, and therefore a function written by you, say for finding sum of two numbers, could be used by another program written by your friend. Functions not only helps to manage the code in a much easier way, they helps to reduce the development time drastically. Tracking of bug, updation of program all becomes very much easier if we modularize our program by writing functions. So far, we have written only one function in our program, and that is the main function. However, we have used several library functions in our program as well, such as printf to print a string into the console, scanf to scan values from the keyboard, and also we have examined some of the string utilities that comes under string.h, such as strcmp, strcpy, strlen. All these functions are typically called library functions because they comes with the language library. And there are thousands of such functions in the language library that we can use from our program. But these functions are meant for general purposes. If we need to find out the system time in our program, then we can just call the time function in the library. If we need to find out a to the power b, then we can just call the pow function in the library. These functions are general, common. They are required commonly. Any programmer may need these functions, so they are given in the library, already written by some community of programmers. But you cannot expect to have a library function that is going to generate the payroll of employees of a particular organization. You cannot expect to have a library functions generally available to calculate the tax of a person for a particular state. Or also you cannot have a library function that's going to calculate the interest of bank accounts for a particular bank. These tasks are rather specific that depends on the business rule of the particular organization. So they are not given in the library. They are not. It is not possible to have them generally available in the library. So often we need to write such functions according to the need of the program, and such functions are called user-defined functions. So here we are. We need to learn how to write user-defined functions in our program. While writing a function, first of all, we need to provide a name for the function. And as far as C programming goes, the name of the function has to be unique. We cannot have duplicate names for the function. Now, in order to work with, the function may need some input, and we supply the input values to the function in terms of parameters or arguments. On completion of the task, the function may need to return back a value to the caller, possibly the result of the work that has to be returned back to the caller, and we can do that by using the return keyword in C. But please remember that using the return keyword, we can return back only one value to the caller function. There may be occasions when a function may not need to return back a value at all to the caller, and there can be occasions as well when a function may not need any input to work with. So there are three things that we need to consider carefully while we write user-defined function. Number one, the purpose of the function. What the function is supposed to do. Number two, what are the inputs that the function requires in order to perform the task that we need to receive as parameter. Number three, the return value that the function is going to return back to the caller on completion of the task. So you need to consider these three cases carefully before you go and write the function. So let's start. Here is a simple programming example where I'm going to write a function in order to show you how we can write a function practically. So we need to write a function that is going to calculate the simple interest on supplying the principal amount, the rate of interest, and the duration. We know that the formula for this particular purpose is actually simple interest is equals to the principal amount multiplied with the rate of interest and the time divided by 100. So that's the formula. We need to apply this formula for this purpose. So we need to write a function. So here we go. First of all, we need to provide a name for the function, an appropriate one. So get simple interest. This could be appropriate function name. Then comes the opening first bracket and closing first bracket. That indicates that this name, get simple interest, belongs to a function. Then we provide opening curly brace and closing curly brace in order to construct the block of this function. Whatever the instruction that comes under this function should be written within this opening curly brace and closing curly brace. That means within this block. So first of all, I need to declare the parameters that this function is supposed to receive. It is going to receive the principal amount, the rate of interest, and the time. And they are all real numbers, so I'm giving double as data type for the input parameters. So the principal amount, then double the rate of interest, then double the time. So these are the three parameters that this function is going to receive as input. While calling this function, I need to supply these three parameters. Okay, now I need to declare a variable in order to keep the interest. So I'm declaring a variable interest. Now I'm just processing the data. Interest equals to principal multiplied with rate and multiplied with time, that's divided by 100. Okay, so we are done with the processing. Now we need to return back the result to the caller, and the result is assigned to the interest variable. So I need to return interest variable, the content of the interest, back to the caller. So here is the return statement. As I have already told you that using this return statement we can return back a value to the caller. But one thing, please remember, whatever the value that the function is returning to the caller, you need to prefix the type of that return value with the function name here. That's important. I will be discussing why this is required later on in the tutorial. So since this interest is of type double, so I'm writing double here. If the function is not returning anything to the caller, then you should write void here, void, void. Okay, if the function is returning an integer value to the caller, then you should write int. If the function is returning character, then you should write char. So the corresponding data type of the return data has to be prefixed with the function name in the declaration. Okay, now let me just call the function to check whether it is working fine or not. I'm just writing some printf scanfs in order to input the principal, rate of interest, and time from keyboard. Here you can see that I have declared four variables here, p, r, t, and I. P, r, and t for principal, rate, and time respectively, and I to keep the calculated interest. So after that, I'm just writing some printf scanfs in order to input the values, and then I'm calling the function. This is the calling point of the function get simple interest. You can see that I'm passing the three parameters here, the p, r, and t. During the execution of the program, these three values will be copied to the corresponding formal arguments. The p is going to be copied here to the principal, r is going to be copied here to the rate, and this t is going to be copied here to the time. And after calculating the interest, the function is going to return back the value which is going to be assigned here in I. So I'm printing I here, as you can see. So I'm running the program. Here we go. It is asking for the principal, so I'm giving, say, $10,000. The rate of interest, say, 10.5%, and the duration is 5 years. So it's going to be $5,250 altogether. That's the interest amount. We can call this function as many numbers of time as we need. That means if I wish, I can call it once more with some other values. So let me call it with some hard-coded values, so $1,000, 5.0% interest, and for 2 years. So it's going to be called, the function is going to be called once more, and again the interest will be calculated and it will be returned back according to these hard-coded parameters. So I'm printing the interest rate once more. So here the interest rate is going to be according to the values that we supply here. Here it is according to the value that we supply here. Okay, so that's the benefit of writing function. One of the benefit that we do not need to rewrite the code. The code is once written here in this module, and we can use this code as many numbers as we need. Okay, I'm running. First time, say I'm giving $9,000 and say 6% interest for duration 5 years. And you can see that this is for these parameters, and this $100 is for this particular parameter that I have hard coded here. Thank you very much for watching this. In the next tutorial, we will be dealing with some more examples on function. And from this point onwards, in every programming example, we will be using functions.